In the spring of 2025, in a quiet conference room at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the table. He stared at the blueprint in front of him, not for a new rocket, not for an AI-driven Tesla, but for something different, something bigger. Project Spark. For years, Musk had been obsessed with the idea of innovation, but he had come to realize that some of the most brilliant minds in the world never got the opportunity to shine. Not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked access. So, he decided to do something about it. He and a small team scoured the country, searching for young visionaries. High school students from underprivileged backgrounds who had big ideas but no resources. After months of research, they found 5. Jamal, Detroit, Michigan, a 16-year-old with a quiet but determined spirit, working on a solar-powered water filtration system to help cities struggling with clean water access. Maria, rural Texas, a self-taught coder developing an AI-based app to assist visually impaired individuals in navigating their surroundings. Lee, Oakland, California, a passionate inventor creating affordable prosthetic hands using 3D printing technology. Carlos, Miami, Florida, a sharp-minded engineer designing a new type of hurricane-resistant building material. Aisha, Chicago, Illinois, a drone enthusiast building autonomous medical delivery drones for remote areas. Each of them had faced their own struggles, poverty, doubt, and lack of support, but they had something in common, a relentless drive to create. Musk sent them a cryptic invitation. No details. Just a plane ticket to Los Angeles, a non-disclosure agreement, and a simple note. Asterisk, if you want to build the future, come. Asterisk. #### arrival at SpaceX. When the 5 teenagers arrived at SpaceX, they were expecting a competition, maybe even a high-stakes science fair. But as they were led through the towering halls filled with rocket parts and prototype engines, anticipation buzzed in the air. Then the doors to a high-tech workshop slid open. Inside, Elon Musk stood casually in jeans and a t-shirt, sleeves rolled up, tinkering with a circuit board. He barely glanced up as they entered, only nodding before gesturing around the massive lab. Workbenches overflowed with cutting-edge tech, AI processors, robotics, aerogel sheets, advanced 3D printers. The air smelled like metal and burnt wiring, the scent of creation. Musk finally turned to them, a mischievous smirk on his face. Asterisk, you're not here to pitch your ideas. You're here to build them. Asterisk. Jamal's eyes widened. Maria's hands gripped her backpack straps. Carlos frowned as if calculating. Lee exhaled sharply. Aisha stood frozen, processing. This is Project Spark, Musk continued. Asterisk, for the next 6 months, you'll have access to SpaceX engineers, materials, and labs. No grades. No rules. Just innovation. Asterisk. Then he clapped his hands together. Asterisk. So let's get started. Asterisk. And just like that, the future was in motion. Would you like me to refine or expand on any part? Smiling face with smiling eyes. The first few weeks of Project Spark were electric. The 5 students dove into their projects with enthusiasm, their minds racing as they sketched blueprints, experimented with prototypes, and debated ideas. With full access to SpaceX's cutting-edge labs, materials, and some of the brightest engineers in the world, their visions finally had a chance to become reality. But innovation was never easy. Elon Musk had promised them no rules, just the freedom to create. But freedom came with its own challenges. Jamal's breakthrough and his doubt. Jamal's solar-powered water filtration system was theoretically sound. On paper, it could remove 98% of contaminants from water using a graphene-based membrane and renewable energy. But in the real world, nothing worked as expected. His first prototype leaked. His second overheated. The third failed completely. One evening, exhausted, he slumped over his workbench. Elon, passing by, stopped and looked over Jamal's scattered designs. Looks like it's not working, Jamal muttered, avoiding eye contact. You know how many SpaceX rockets exploded before we landed one? Elon said. Jamal shook his head. 12. That caught his attention. 12 times we watched them go up in flames. Millions of dollars lost. People called us idiots. But failure is just the process of figuring things out. Elon tapped the failed prototype. So, what did you figure out? Jamal stared at it for a moment. Then something clicked. He grabbed a wrench, made a quick adjustment, and ran another test. This time, the water that trickled out was clear. Elon grinned. See, you're already better than me. Took 12 tries. You only needed 4. Maria's confidence crisis. Maria had always been an outsider in the tech world. A Latina girl from rural Texas, she was used to being underestimated. Even now, in a room filled with some of the smartest engineers, she felt like an imposter. Her AI-based app for visually impaired users was promising, but when she presented it to a senior SpaceX programmer, his expression remained skeptical. AI for navigation is tricky, he said. Big companies have spent years on it. What makes you think yours will work? Maria felt her face flush. She had spent months perfecting her code, but under his gaze, she suddenly felt like a kid playing with a toy computer. That night, she stayed in the lab late, rewriting sections of her algorithm, doubting every line of code. Around midnight, Elon wandered in, eating a protein bar. Still working, he asked. Maria hesitated, then blurted out, "What if I'm not good enough?" Elon sat down across from her. "You ever hear about the time Tesla was 2 weeks from bankruptcy?" She shook her head. "Everyone told me we wouldn't make it, that we were too small to compete. But here's the thing. Being underestimated is an advantage. It means no one sees you coming." He glanced at her screen. "Your code, does it work?" Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Then show them why they were wrong." The next day, she confidently pitched her project again. This time she owned the room. Carlos was ambitious, but he was also stubborn. His hurricane-resistant material was brilliant, combining carbon fiber and a shape memory polymer that could absorb impact and snap back into shape. But when he ran his first test in a wind tunnel, the material cracked under extreme pressure. Elon suggested an adjustment. Carlos disagreed. "That's not the problem," Carlos argued. "It's the structure, not the material composition." "I've designed reusable rockets," Elon countered. "I think I know a little about material stress." The conversation escalated. Carlos, frustrated, threw down his notes. "Maybe I should just do this on my own." He stormed out, leaving an awkward silence behind. For 2 days, Carlos refused to talk to anyone. But then, one of the SpaceX engineers, an expert in aerodynamics, quietly slipped him a new idea. It wasn't from Elon. It was just another scientist who believed in his work. Carlos swallowed his pride, made the adjustment, and ran another test. This time, his material held firm, even under Category 5 hurricane conditions. He didn't apologize to Elon, but when Musk walked past his station, Carlos gave him a small nod. Elon smirked. "Told you so." Carlos rolled his eyes, but they both knew the fight had made the project better. Aisha had dreamed of building medical delivery drones since she was 12. Now she had all the tools she needed, but she wasn't sure if she could actually pull it off. Her first test flight ended in disaster. The drone lifted off, wobbled, then crashed straight into a workbench. Everyone in the lab turned to stare. She felt her face heat up. This was a mistake. "I shouldn't be here." Elon, watching from a distance, didn't say anything at first. Then, as the silence stretched, he suddenly clapped his hands. "Perfect." Aisha blinked. "Now we know what doesn't work," he said, grinning. "That's step 1. Let's get to step 2. He pulled up a chair and started going over her design with her. That was the moment Aisha realized something. Failure wasn't the end. It was just part of the process. And she wasn't alone. As the months passed, the 5 students worked, failed, fought, and pushed themselves harder than ever before. They weren't just building projects, they were learning what it meant to be innovators. They started to rely on each other. Late nights in the lab turned into inside jokes. Maria taught Lee how to code. Jamal and Carlos debated engineering principles over slices of pizza. Aisha and Elon had a running joke about whose crashes were worse, hers or SpaceX's early rockets. They had come in as strangers. Now they were a team. And as their projects neared completion, none of them realized just how big of an impact they were about to make. By month 5, Project Spark had become more than just a mentorship program. It was a battlefield of ideas, failures, and breakthroughs. Each of the 5 students had faced their struggles, but now they were closer than ever to making their visions real. Lee had been relentless in perfecting his affordable prosthetic hand. His 3D printed design was sleek, functional, and far cheaper than traditional models. But there was one major flaw: it lacked real sensitivity. Without the ability to detect pressure and temperature, it was still just a mechanical hand. And that wasn't good enough. One evening, exhausted, he sat at his workstation, staring at a pile of discarded prototypes. What was he missing? That's when Elon walked in, holding a small chip between his fingers. "Ever heard of Neuralink?" he asked. Lee frowned. "The brain interface thing." "But that's for mind-controlled tech, not prosthetics." "Why not both?" Elon tossed the chip to him. "Try it." Skeptical but desperate, Lee integrated the Neuralink sensor into his prosthetic. When he put it on, something astonishing happened. For the first time he could feel. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but when he picked up a cup, he could sense how much pressure he was applying. He wasn't just moving the hand, he was using it. Elon smirked. "Not bad for a kid from Oakland." Lee grinned. For the first time, he wasn't just making a prosthetic. He was making a future. Jamal's solar-powered water filtration system was working. Mostly. It removed contaminants at an impressive rate, but the purification process was too slow. Then a breakthrough. While tinkering with his design, Jamal realized that stacking graphene layers in a different structure sped up filtration dramatically. In the next test, his system reached 98% purification in half the original time. That night, the entire team celebrated. "Dude, you just solved a global water crisis," Carlos said, clapping Jamal on the back. Jamal chuckled, shaking his head. "Not yet. But I'm getting there." Elon, watching from a distance, simply nodded. Maria's AI navigation app was ready for testing, but she needed a real-world trial. That's when she met Ethan, a 12-year-old boy who had been blind since birth. When she handed him the device, Ethan hesitated. "Will it really work?" he asked. "Let's find out," Maria replied, her heart pounding. Ethan activated the app. As he walked forward, the AI scanned his surroundings, giving him real-time audio feedback. He avoided obstacles, adjusted his path, and for the first time in his life, walked without holding someone's hand. His mother wiped away tears. "This is going to change lives," she whispered. Maria, overwhelmed, barely managed a nod. This wasn't just an app anymore. It was hope. Carlos had finally perfected his hurricane-resistant material. But Elon wasn't satisfied with lab results. "Let's see how it holds up in the real world," he said. So they took it to SpaceX's high-pressure testing facility, a chamber capable of simulating hurricane-force winds. The team gathered around as Elon cranked up the pressure. 100 miles per hour. 120 miles per hour. 150 miles per hour. Carlos clenched his fists. Would it hold? 200 miles per hour. The chamber roared like a beast. The material flexed, absorbed the force, and held firm. Carlos exhaled. Elon simply grinned. "Now that's what I call storm-proof." Aisha had fixed her medical delivery drone, but there was no way to know if it would truly make a difference, until an unexpected call came. A remote medical camp in Arizona had a patient in critical need of a rare blood type. The nearest supply was hours away. Aisha looked at her drone, then at Elon. "You think it can make it?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "Only one way to find out." With a team of SpaceX engineers tracking it, the drone took off. The world watched as it flew across the desert, avoiding turbulence, adjusting to wind patterns. 30 minutes later, it landed at the camp. The blood transfusion saved the patient's life. That night, Aisha sat on the rooftop of the SpaceX facility, staring at the stars. She had built something that mattered. Elon found her there. "You know what this means, right?" She smiled. "Yeah. We're just getting started." By the end of the project, the 5 students weren't just colleagues. They were family. They had spent nights in the lab, arguing, laughing, failing, and succeeding. They had seen each other at their worst. Frustrated, exhausted, doubting themselves. And yet, they had built something incredible together. One night, Elon ordered pizza and energy drinks for everyone. They played old-school video games on a giant screen, laughing as Elon trash-talked them in Mario Kart. "I can't believe you just red-shelled me, Maria." Elon groaned. "Gotta take down the billionaires somehow," she joked. For the first time, they saw him not as a legend, not as a billionaire, but as a mentor. And he saw them not as students, but as the future. Their final challenge. Presenting their projects to the world. The air inside SpaceX's main auditorium buzzed with energy. The massive hall, normally reserved for SpaceX rocket unveilings, was now packed with some of the biggest names in tech, science, and venture capital. Tonight, the world would meet Project Spark. Elon Musk stood at the edge of the stage, watching as his 5 protégés whispered nervously among themselves. Jamal, Maria, Lee, Carlos, and Aisha. 5 high school students who had come in as underdogs. Now they were about to showcase inventions that could change lives. But would the world see what Elon saw in them? The lights dimmed. The crowd hushed. And then the future took the stage. Jamal stepped forward, gripping the mic. A live feed from Flint, Michigan, flashed onto the screen behind him. Rows of families stared at contaminated water bottles in their hands, the same problem they'd battled for years. "Imagine waking up every morning, knowing the water from your tap might poison you," Jamal said. "Millions of people live like this every day. But they don't have to." He gestured to his invention, a compact solar-powered filtration unit. A SpaceX engineer turned on the device. Before the audience's eyes, a glass of filthy brown water poured in, and seconds later, crystal-clear water flowed out. Gasps echoed through the room. The results were undeniable. 98% purification, powered entirely by the sun. A moment of silence. Then thunderous applause. An investor from a clean energy startup shot to his feet. "We'll fund production. Name your price." Jamal's breath caught. He had just solved Flint's crisis. And maybe the world's. Maria took the stage next. The screen behind her showed a live video feed from Texas. Ethan, the 12-year-old boy she had worked with, stood waiting. "Ethan, can you hear me?" Maria asked, gripping the mic. "Loud and clear." His voice came through the speakers. The crowd watched as Ethan tapped his phone. The AI system scanned his surroundings in real time, guiding him safely across an unfamiliar space. People in the audience leaned forward, jaws dropping. The app wasn't just working, it was revolutionizing accessibility. Tears welled up in Ethan's mother's eyes. Someone in the front row whispered, "This could help millions." Maria exhaled slowly. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like an outsider in tech. She belonged. A representative from a major non-profit accessibility organization stepped forward. "We want to launch this nationwide." Maria's hands trembled. This wasn't just a school project anymore. This was real. Lee rolled his shoulders, nerves buzzing, as he wheeled out a simple robotic hand. "Prosthetics are expensive. Many amputees can't afford them. But what if we made one for just a few $100s?" he began. He slipped on the Neuralink-enhanced prosthetic. With a deep breath, he reached out and picked up an egg. No cracking. No breaking. His prosthetic responded like a real human hand. The crowd gasped. A medical researcher stood up, stunned. Wait, he can feel that. Yes, Lee grinned. And so can anyone who wears this. Standing at the back, Elon crossed his arms and smirked. Lee had just rewritten the future of prosthetics. Carlos stepped onto the stage with quiet confidence. Last year, hurricanes caused over $100 billion in damage, he said, clicking a button. The screen behind him showed footage of hurricane winds tearing through buildings. This is what we're up against. He lifted a thin, flexible panel no bigger than a book cover. And this is how we fight back. The screen cut to a live stress test inside a SpaceX wind tunnel. As the audience watched, the material endured simulated hurricane-force winds of 200 miles per hour, without breaking. Instead, it bent, absorbed the force, and returned to shape. The room erupted in applause. FEMA executives exchanged impressed glances. How soon can we test this in the field? One of them asked. Carlos grinned. Sooner than you think. Aisha was last. She took a deep breath, gripping the podium. A few weeks ago, this drone carried life-saving blood to a medical camp in Arizona, she began. Gasps rippled through the audience. The screen played footage of her drone slicing through the desert sky, delivering the crucial blood supply just in time. She turned to the crowd. If a drone can deliver blood, what else can it deliver? Vaccines, medicine, disaster relief. Silence. Then, a standing ovation. A CEO from a global humanitarian aid organization called out, "Let's talk about scaling this worldwide." Aisha's eyes widened. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. As the applause roared, the event's live stream exploded online. The hashtag Project Spark trended within minutes. News outlets picked up the story. Elon Musk finally took the stage. These 5 students prove that innovation doesn't come from billion-dollar labs, he said. It comes from passion, grit, and the belief that the impossible is just a problem waiting to be solved. He turned to the 5 young innovators. And that's why I'm expanding Project Spark, nationwide. The auditorium erupted in cheers. The 5 students stood together, looking out at the crowd, at the cameras, at the world. A few months ago they were just kids with ideas. Now, they were pioneers. And this was only the beginning. The night after the Project Spark showcase, the 5 young innovators stood on the rooftop of SpaceX headquarters, looking out over the glowing skyline of Los Angeles. Aisha broke the silence first. Asterisk, we did it. Asterisk. Maria smirked. Asterisk, no. We started it. Asterisk. Jamal nodded. Asterisk. And now the world is watching. Asterisk. Elon Musk, standing a few feet away, simply sipped his coffee and smiled. Asterisk. Project Spark didn't fade after the showcase. It exploded. Jamal's solar water filter was deployed in Flint, Michigan, and later expanded to communities across the U.S. struggling with clean water access. Within months, it had purified drinking water for over 100,000 people. Maria's AI app was integrated into accessibility programs, giving thousands of visually impaired individuals a new level of independence. Lee's prosthetic hand entered mass production, cutting the cost of bionic limbs by over 70% and giving affordable solutions to amputees worldwide. Carlos's storm-proof material became a standard in FEMA housing projects, protecting countless families from extreme weather. Aisha's drone technology was picked up by humanitarian organizations, delivering medical supplies to disaster zones and saving hundreds of lives. Each of them had gone from being students with ideas to leaders in their fields. But Project Spark wasn't done. In 2030, 5 figures stepped through the doors of SpaceX's headquarters once more. They weren't kids anymore. Jamal, now an MIT graduate, was leading a global clean water initiative. Maria, a rising name in AI development, had just secured funding for a new accessibility startup. Lee, a bioengineering student at Stanford, was developing next-gen prosthetics that could fully integrate with the human nervous system. Carlos, an architect specializing in disaster-resistant housing, was designing storm-proof communities for climate refugees. Aisha, now working in aerospace, was testing autonomous rescue drones for Mars exploration. They walked into a familiar room. Elon Musk's lab. He looked up from his work, grinning. Took you long enough. Maria crossed her arms. We were busy changing the world. Elon chuckled. Good. Now let's make it even better. They had arrived as students. Now they were mentors. Project Spark was no longer just an experiment. It was a movement. And the next generation of dreamers was waiting. The world often overlooks those with big ideas but no resources. But sometimes all it takes is one spark. Teacher who believes in you. A mentor who takes a chance. A moment when the impossible feels just within reach. And from that spark, a wildfire of innovation, courage, and change can ignite. As Elon once said, these kids are the future. And the future. It had just begun. Rocket. This wraps up the Project Spark journey with an inspiring ending. Rocket fire, let me know if you want any refinements. Smiling face with smiling eyes.